One of the most important concepts that we deal with in early recovery is E over I and I over E. It's what I call recovery algebra, although it has nothing to do with mathematics or algebra. It stands for intellect over emotion versus emotion over intellect. Whenever we allow ourselves to look through the distorted lens of our emotion when viewing a situation, we see a distorted image. We invariably come up with an equally distorted solution to the problem, and of course it doesn't work. When we do that, we escalate our emotional level even more. We get angry, we get frustrated, we get anxious, and we look at it even a more distorted view of the situation. And it cycles from there. It gets worse and worse. What we try to do is get people to practice the concept of taking a breath, taking a moment, taking whatever you need to take, and engage the brain. Once we do this, if we can allow ourselves to consciously think about our response to a situation before actually doing or saying anything, 9 times out of 10, the situation will resolve itself in our favor. And that's really what we want. We want to be in control of our situation, in control of our outcomes. When we get into arguments with our loved ones, and we still will argue in early recovery, our emotional levels are automatically going to be chimed in. We're going to be escalated above normal because we have an emotional bond with these people. Now, what happens if I'm sitting at a kitchen table with a loved one, and for one reason or another they're angry or they're frustrated or they're upset, and their emotional level is escalated? The first thing I'm going to do without even thinking about it is I'm going to escalate my own emotional level, throw my defensive walls up, and start firing back with both guns. This is what we want to avoid. It's what we call learning to fight fair. What we try to do is we try to remember to put I over E, and this is very difficult when you're dealing with loved ones. To put I over E, we have to stop and take a moment, take a breath, pause, and engage the brain. 9 times out of 10, what this will entail is doing nothing. Sit there, listen, and allow the other person to vent their frustration and their emotional level. You will see their emotional level begin to come down and their intellectual level begin to come up until they reach a point where you can actually see them shift from E over I to I over E. Once they do that, you know that you can continue the conversation and resolve the issue. A lot of people think that they've had hundreds, possibly thousands of fights with their loved ones, their spouses or their children. In reality, they've probably had 4 or 5 fights, but they have the same fights over and over and over again. They dress it up with different circumstances and different nomenclature, but it's the same basic core issue that they're fighting about. If we learn to put I over E and resolve the issue, chances are within the first few months of sobriety, after we're home with our loved ones, there's no more fights to be had. They're all done. They're resolved. When we put E over I, the most important thing about a fight is to win. To win at all costs. It doesn't matter who's right. It doesn't matter who's wrong. It doesn't matter if the issue ever gets resolved. The important thing is to win. However, when we put I over E, and we no longer let our feelings dictate our behaviors, the most important thing is to resolve the issue once and for all and move on. If we learn to put I over E in all aspects of our life, or at least in most aspects of our life, we cease being the victim. And after all, that's the important thing. If we're no longer the victim, our chances of relapse are almost nil.